Hi Jess! In this video we're going to go over the piece called Antigone, and the first three things are going to be very fundamental things we look at before we start. Key signature, time signature, and tempo. So we are in 4/4 time, going at 120 beats per minute, so this is pretty quick. And our key signature has one flat in it, which could mean one of two things. We're either in F major or D minor. But once we hear it, we'll know for sure that we're in the key of D minor. Now in the very beginning, we have con gravitas at the beginning, which is Latin for with weight. Like it says in there broadly, it's going to be very broad, strong. That's why we have a fortissimo in here, so we're going to be very broad, strong, loud, lots of power. So we're going to give each of those half notes a little nudge. We could be playing it very pretty, but this is broad, noble, with weight. Just a hint of a space between each note. Measure 4 they actually write out, slightly spaced, so this is going to be a little more obvious. A little fingering suggestion, measure 7 going into measure 8, we are going to be shifting to our high E up here. So what that's going to look like is, in measure 7 we have B flat, low 1, open A, 4, 2, and then we're going to shift whole step, and then onto the A string. Our fourth finger is here on our E. We have second finger, first finger C sharp, open A, and then back to our low 1 for our B flat. I want to remind you, measure 13, they have that E flat in there, so we're using our low first finger. But then in the next measure, they don't have anything written next to that E. So we need to remind ourselves we're back to the regular E natural, right? Because it's a new measure. All accidentals go away in the next measure. So regular first finger there. And then what I like to do in measure 16 is write in a little bow lift. Actually, it's not that little. Mine's a pretty big bow lift, and I circled it. Because we have 2 down bows in a row, and we're loud, we're fortissimo. So we have note, bow lift back to the frog, another note. And then actually we have another bow lift, because in the next measure there's yet another down bow. So when we have these, happens a lot in here. When we have multiple down bows in a row, we need to remember to do our bow lift back to the frog when it's loud and forte, or fortissimo. And then here in measure 17, this is kind of a tricky rhythm. So what I like to do is draw slashes on the big beats, meaning on 1, 2, 3, 4. So what I did is draw a slash underneath the first beat on the E flat, a slash on that 8th rest, a slash on the quarter rest on the 3rd beat, and then a slash on the 4th beat A. So what this is going to look like is 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. And then coming up in measure 19, this is our first quick passage, right? We don't really have too many quick things before that, but how I like to practice this is because they're double strokes, meaning you have 2 bows per note, I like to just ignore that, do 1 bow per note, instead of going to reduce it and practice the measure that way and ramp up the speed. Like I said, you can reduce the bow to just 1 bow per note, and then when you feel comfortable, try the double strokes. Jumping ahead to measure 22, we have this squiggly looking symbol, which means del segno. It's our del segno sign. So later in the piece, we're going to be told to come back to this symbol, kind of like a repeat sign. So what I like to do is I like to draw 2 big slashes out, up, and down, so it's very eye-catching. So when I need to jump from the 3rd page back to the 1st page to this symbol, I can easily see where I'm supposed to go. So I like to draw those slashes in there and circle the sign. Now measure 26, this says aggressively. So I could be playing this very delicately. Very nice, but it's aggressive. So once again, we need to put little nudges on each of the bow changes. Very intentional bow change. Sounds a little more aggressive, right? So this kind of bow technique happens until we have our actual accents written in at measure 29. So now our nudges are a little more obvious. And just to review what an accent is, it's when you kind of bite the beginning of a note with a quick bow, lots of energy, and then quickly you release and slow down. Instead of holding on to the bite, we bite the beginning and release. So one big burst. And what's tricky about these is the up bow is a lot trickier to make sound like the down bow. We don't have as much of an advantage out here. It's so light, all our power is over here. So we need to work extra hard to make those bows sound exactly the same. Now for the ultimate accent, measure 34. This is an even stronger accent. We're of course starting at the frog a little bit towards the bridge. We don't want it to sound too ugly, but we do want it to sound very strong, very accented. Now for some more fingering suggestions, we have measure 37. And this, we're just going to shift back to half position, a half step back towards the nut. So our fingering here, starting on the E flat, is going to be 1. Then our fourth finger sits nicely on our G flat, fourth finger D flat, and third finger C natural. And we stay in this position because in the next measure we have E flat and E flat. And then in the measure after that, 39, we have B natural, B flat. So we kind of stay in this half position for a while until measure 41. Now jumping ahead to measure 44, for this A flat we need to shift up a half step away from first position. So we have our fourth finger on A flat, third finger G, and now we're shifting back to second finger E natural. And then for our E flat, it's first finger. I'll play through this once. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1. Okay. Coming up in measure 47, we're going to play this D sharp with our first finger, F sharp fourth finger, C natural third finger, and then open. And then in the next measure, we're back to regular old first position. So we have our first finger for our B natural. It's totally fine to throw as many reminders as you need onto a page, just so that they catch your attention. Now, the end of measure 60, we have that G flat with our extended fourth finger, and then our open A on the downbeat of measure 61. But notice, our key signature has changed. There's a natural sign in the key signature that cancels out that B flat we had before. So now we have a B natural. And this lasts for quite some time. What I like to do is on our next B natural, measure 66. We have a B natural with our third finger, so I like to write in a little 3 and a little natural sign. And then later in that same measure, we have our regular first position first finger. So I like to write in a little natural sign in a parentheses there as well. So when we get to this new section with a different key signature, look at the tempo. We've just cut our tempo in half, literally from 120 down to 60. And we have a word there, doloroso, which means sorrowful. So now we're very slow and we're sad. And we also have to put on our mute. So after that downbeat, accented A in measure 61, I like to put in a little symbol there, or a big symbol there, reminding myself to take my mute, if you have one, bring it up and over the bridge, and leave it there. So we're very slow, sad, and soft at this moment. So what do we do with our bow? We're going to bring it a little further away from the bridge and further out from the frog, because the frog and the bridge are where we get power, and we kind of want to step away from that. So I'm going to be bowing about here. Now for some fingerings. 64, going into 65. We have our open A at the end of measure 64, but when we come down on our G, we're going to actually use our third finger. Okay, so third finger on that G in measure 65, fourth finger on the A flat, and then 1 on the F natural. Then, for the next measure, during that little rest we have, we're going to shift back to first position and have 3 on our now B natural. So one more time, let me do it a little slowly. So our fingering here is going to be 1, 3, 4, 1 on our B natural. Now we're shifting a whole step up to our E, 4, 2, and then 2 again. Another really important thing to circle, lots of circling, is in measure 71, we have a time signature change. 6-4. And then we go back to 4-4 in the next measure. So make sure to circle those so that we could just stay in time with the rest of the orchestra. So jumping ahead to measure 86. So we're coming off of that in a little decrescendo, and now we get to take our mute off. So I like to draw in a big symbol there, mute off. So we're going to slide this thing down, not let it dangle here, but actually push it down against these string wraps down here so it stays put. We don't want any rattling going on, so down there. And now we're back to a stronger dynamic mezzo forte. And we're back to our tempo 1, which is 120 beats per minute. So go ahead, draw a little quarter note in there. Quarter note equals 120, and circle it so we remember back up to our tempo. Another thing to note as well is the flat that we got back into our key signature. So we have a B flat again. We're in D minor. We also have our second finger B flat on the G string. So go ahead and mark those little reminders in if you need them. Now we're almost done. Just going to do some more fingering suggestions. Measure 96, we have a little more shifting going on. So we have our regular G, we have our B flat back here, and now we're shifting 1.5 steps up to our E natural up here. So this is a little different than what we're used to doing. We're used to shifting half steps or whole steps, but this is 1.5. So we need to practice this little shift until our hand remembers it, because our hand doesn't know anything until we train it what to do. It's our little dummy. So go ahead and practice that section a few times. So after this shift, we have our D with our second finger, and then back to B flat. Then coming up in measure 100, we have the same shift, but this is a faster passage. So let's go through it a little slowly. So we have open, second finger C natural, open A, 4, low 1. Now here's our shift, and then back to C natural, second finger. So let's go through that once. 3 and 4 and. And take all the time you need, isolate your 2 notes that you shift between, and you'll have this comfortably in no time. Now we have a crescendo into our fortissimo dynamic, and then at 104 we have another double stroke passage, rip away, but of course, before we do that, we need to practice it slowly. And then at the end of this section, we see that DS al Coda sign, and I put those 2 big slashes in there, reminding me that I need to now repeat back to the DS del Segno sign on the first page. So it's a big jump. Our eyes need to go across 2 pages to that DS sign. And then from there, we're going to read to where we see the Coda sign, which we skipped the first time through, but now it's our second time through. We're going to take that Coda sign, we're going to skip to the 3rd page where it says Coda, and then finish out the piece. So now we're at Coda. This is triple forte, so this is the loudest we've ever been. So I give you full permission, use your entire bow. A lot of bow contact. Let's go over measure 113 and 14, because now all the cellos, or the celli, are going to split off, and half of them are going to do the top line, half of them are going to be the bottom. Let's go over both. So let's start with the top line. We have an E flat that we're going to be playing with our 4th finger. Then we have 3 for the D, 4, 3, 2, 3. But stay there, because in the next measure we have the same fingering, just quicker. Now we're doing 8th notes. 4, 3, 4, 3, 2, 3 again. And then we shift back to our B flat. Now for the bottom line, what your fingering is going to be is our low 1 for the E flat, open D, regular 4, 3, 2, and then open G and D. We have to play both those notes as a double stop. And then in the next measure, you're going to join in with the other half of the cello and use that same fingering for the line. Now reading through measure 116, our fingering is going to, be low 1, B flat, open A for open. And now for this F sharp, we're actually going to play that with our fourth finger so that we can play our E flat very easily with our first finger. So 4 on the F sharp, 1 on the E flat, open, regular fourth finger, and then open. And then we have a double stop with our first finger E and our A. And then we have 3 of just open D and open A. And remember, we need to do bow lifts between these. They need to be fairly quick because we're triple forte. We're using a lot of bow, and although we have a molto allargando in there, which means to slow down, we still need to make these quick bow lifts. Whenever we have something like totally new or unexpected, we don't want to miss it. So I like to draw a little pair of eyeglasses in there that tells me, hey, look ahead, or pay attention to the conductor, or something, so that we can all be together. So I look forward to the next video. I'm going to be doing a full run through of the piece that you can play along with me. Alright, I'll see you in the next video.